I'm pretty obsessed with my dragon genealogy on Flight Rising. The parents and offspring trees on Flight Rising are probably one of my favorite game paradigms. For longer than 2 years, I've cultivated a core bloodline in my lair. Drakken hatched on June 16th, 2014. He was exalted on September 7th, 2014 as a level 5 Codal. If this sounds familiar to you, you might be one of the 87 viewers who watched the video I made about him. Every once in a while, I wonder how much influence Drakken has on the dragons I actively own. Is he an ancestor to even one of them? I keep a record of the dragons that are in my lair and the dragons I've exalted. You would think that this would be a good way to trace a lineage. But since November 2014, I've gone through a few iterations of this sheet. My naming convention should catch a long lineage though, right? I name my dragons after the length of their same-sex lineage in my lair. A first-generation dragon gets a name that starts with the letter A. A female dragon whose mother was a first generation in the lair gets a name starting with B. Her daughter would have a name starting with C, and so on and so on. I always write this process out by hand, and it gets a little tedious if I come across a long line. While this naming strategy should clear up who's who in established lineages, all it takes is a clutch without a boy for an entire chapter of the family tree to be erased. This is pretty problematic when it comes to finding out who's descended from Drakken. The easiest way to find his surviving offspring is to start with Drakken himself. There are 2 ways to follow the lineage down: the regular way and the procrastinating running errands way. Let's do the regular way first. Starting at Drakken's page, the untrained eye may not know which offspring to follow, but insider secret, Abdu, Wardum, and Zigvik are placeholder names I give to dragons before exalting them, so there's no reason to follow those trees. They should be dead. If we click on Brink, he only had 1 surviving offspring, and so did his offspring. This pattern continues all the way down to Kedra, but if from her we jump to King, it picks back up. The lineage goes all the way down to Krifikin, a guardian female currently alive in my lair. We also find that Idsun, Lansing, and Fethi are Drakken descendants using this process. Wow, that's so straightforward. Why wouldn't we simply repeat that process with all the other unexplored branches of the family tree? Well, because I'm allowed to make this process as complicated as I want. Let's open Google Sheets and cancel all of our weekend plans. It's time to map a family tree. Step 1 is to place Drakken firmly in the sheet. Step 2 is to add his parents because I like to establish lineages and Drakken was not the first member of his family to be in my lair. Then we can tack on his parents' parents because they may not have been the first members of their family in my lair. If you're curious how I know who was a member of my lair or not, there's no easy way to tell. I somehow remember what pixel internet dragons were in my lair nearly 3 years ago. Now, looking over this, I feel like a bit of a dummy because Shug isn't the first generation in her line in my lair. I completely overlooked her parents, who were once prized dragons in my collection. The same with Fresco. Whatever. Let's move on to Drakken's offspring. Since we already followed Brank, let's go Ferris this time. Drakken had Ferris with a dragon named Sloan. For the sake of consistency, we should definitely put Sloan's parents on this family tree, right? With every generation, this thing gets more massive. The blue and pink dragons should be the ones who are the first generations in my lair. By the time we get to Griffin, he cannot breed with any of those 8 dragons on top. He's still too closely related. But when we get to Handwriting, there are enough dragons between him and Zamyatin that they could successfully mate. We keep going and it looks like the male lineage is always going to be the core of this tree. I'm not really quite sure why I kept going at this point. I could only follow 1 offspring at a time, so this entire process undoubtedly missed some branches entirely. I wrapped up the sheet at Uticats and Ina, just to pick it back up here and here. And the grand results are Eatpat and Gernetta are, among other things, descended from Drakken. Using that same logic, so are Caldwin and Jimsby. Altogether, that means there are 8 dragons in my lair descended from Drakken, and some of them can breed with one another. That was crazy, but it was also a lot of fun to plot out. If you have an easier family tree method, please let me know in the comments. I was thinking about doing a flowchart, but a lot of those tools are more tedious or cost money. This method isn't a perfect solution, and I'd love to see how you guys would put this together. There was a link to the Lineage Google Sheet in the description. Looking at my old dragons made me very nostalgic for the aesthetic my lair used to have. I immediately went out and bought about a dozen dragons to try and bring back that aesthetic. I also decided that I'm going to change my lair's culture of breeding and exalting. I regularly exalt a dragon after they breed for the first time and only keep 1 of their offspring. From now on, I'm going to aim to have 1 living male and 1 female offspring for every dragon. I'm also going to try and do away with exalting my dragons. If you're interested in seeing what dragons I have for sale, detail, I recommend checking out the last 2 pages of my lair. This process is going to add more pages of dragons in my lair, so this number will keep growing. It's been a while since we checked in on our Viewer's Choice Bottleneck Challenge. Last time it was between Queen Green and Boy Howdy. The votes are in, and Queen Green will be remaining in our Bottleneck Challenge. Goodbye, Boy Howdy. This time we have Happy Pixie Stick and Sad Pixie Stick. Let me know in the card annotation who should survive and continue to next time. I'm gonna try to do this more regularly. It just kind of fell off the map. It's still going though, so let me know who should survive. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. Like this video if you enjoyed it, because it helps me out a lot, and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. Before I head out, just want to let you guys know that Sunday, September 18th at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I will be live streaming. Who knows, maybe we'll talk about how Baldwin seems to be changing species. Does this mean we're going to have a new brewable species that's on the same level rarity as Skydancers? I don't know. Let me know in the comments below what games you would like to see me cover. Hope to see you then. Thanks!